Hello, accounting students. Welcome to our course wrap-up. All right, so we are in our last few days of the course. This is Wednesday that I'm shooting this, so we still have until Sunday. But I'd like to kind of do a quick course wrap-up, hopefully answer any questions that you might have in our final closing days. But one of the things I like to do is review the syllabus. I like to review the syllabus in the beginning of the course and touch base with it at the end. Kind of two bookends, if you will, on our course. So let's jump into the syllabus real quick. One thing to remember, our last day of the course is when? Sunday at midnight, so March 3rd, Sunday at midnight, final day of the course. Remember that. Don't forget. Anything, late assignments, I'll talk about that in a while. Any assignments, everything has to be in by midnight Eastern time, Sunday, March 3rd. Let's take a look at the course objectives. So the course objectives are, what did we want to do with this? What were our learning objectives over the past 8 weeks? As I mentioned to you before, that this course is not intended to make you an accountant. You're not, with the time that we have and the number of credit hours, a lot of the applications of accounting will simply not be reviewed or practiced in great detail. But what we want you to do is understand at least some of those processes that are involved with accounting. But again, not going to make you an accountant. That's going to take a lot more credit hours to do if you're interested in that. So let's take a look at our course objectives, kind of keeping that framework in mind, and that we're really looking at the foundational building blocks that you're going to need as a healthcare manager in understanding accounting. So our first objective was to describe the purpose of accounting and the accounting process. Hopefully by now you can do that. You have shown me through our learning activities, our quizzes, our case studies that you have been able to do that. Demonstrate the application of basic accounting terminology. Again, in all those things that I just cited, yes, you've been doing that. You've been practicing that language of accounting. You understand those terms. And that's, again, another one of our major objectives of this course, is you understanding that language. Accounting is really they do say it's the language, it's kind of cliched in the world of accounting, but it is the language of business. And it is somewhat of a foreign language. So if we haven't heard it before or haven't been introduced to those terms before, it's something that we don't normally use in our day-to-day language. But as a manager, as a healthcare leader, you're going to be using that language and understanding what those words mean and the importance of those terms is critical for you to make good decisions. So, number 2, I think we've done a good job with that. Number 3, identifying and interpreting fundamental financial statements. So you know what those basic financial statements are, the income statement, the balance sheet, cash flow statements, etc., that apply to both profit and nonprofit organizations. You know what those are now. Many of you didn't know the difference between an income statement and a balance sheet before starting this course. I wanted you to understand that at least there is a difference between those. They have different purposes. The information that they capture is different. And why? Why would you need an income statement versus a balance sheet? Again, I think that by this point, you definitely know what those differences are and what those mean. What I think's really been interesting is some of you have been writing to me in your email, also in our journaling assignments that we've had, our progress journals, that in your division meetings and your department meetings, you almost always get some sort of financial part in these meetings that gets talked about. Many of you have said to me that, yeah, we've been getting these income statements and I really didn't know what I was looking at, but now I kind of know what I'm looking at. I know I can see how they're structured and it looks just like a traditional income statement. So there, excellent. You're able to take that information and apply that directly to the workplace, which is, essential and critical for you being a healthcare manager, a healthcare leader. Number 4, explain the essential functions and applications of financial and managerial accounting. That one we tackled pretty early on in the course, really explaining what the difference is between those two. Remember that in the case of financial accounting, that's more for external entities looking from the outside in to your organization, let's say a bank or some sort of investment company, looking at your organization. And then there's managerial accounting is what you do internally. They have very different purposes. They might use some similar concepts, but their overall purpose and the groups that they serve are completely different. You have a good grasp of what those are. Now, as a manager, you're primarily going to be dealing with managerial accounting in your jobs, in your day-to-day jobs. The financial accounting is where, though you may not see it as frequently, you will see it because it's really where the rubber hits the road. It's I guess the true temperature of the organization, a lot of the true vital signs of the organization are going to be reflected through those financial managerial accounting processes. And that's the livelihood of the organization. So both are really critical, but day to day you'll be dealing more with the managerial side. And then number 5, summarize the importance of accounting to healthcare organizations. So I said this, I think, in my intro to the class as well. Many of you aren't going to like accounting. Most people don't. It's kind of boring. I think it's a little bit boring. What I think is more exciting is the applications that accounting serves, and that's with finance. That's more of the interesting processes that I think are there. That's really makes the engine go, is with finance. So, but hopefully you understand that you've got to have it. You know, it's kind of like necessary medicine. You got to have it for healthcare organizations to run smoothly. All right, so there's the 5 objectives that we have with this course. I think that we have met those basically those five basic building blocks that you're going to need to be that healthcare manager, that healthcare leader. All right, so that's our last visit on the syllabus. Let's talk a little bit about winding the course up. I talked about this last week, but just to kind of hit some high points with this. And hopefully that you listened to last week's video and started to do a little bit of forward planning in what we're doing in Module 8. So Module 8, we then have another learning activity. That's normal fare. You guys are very used to that. Most of you, at this point, I've seen about half of the students have already turned in the learning activity for Module 8. So I saw you kind of working ahead, which was great. Case study. Again, I've got I think we've got about 7 case studies turned in at this point. That's pretty much normal, for a class this size, for some folks to be nearly done with the class. So with the case study, let's just pop into there real quickly. Again, hopefully it's not too hard. I do allow you to choose any of the 2 of these 4 questions. As I've said before, just make sure that you're answering them thoroughly. You're supporting your point of view. And that's typically going to take a couple of full paragraphs to do that. So then just make sure you're supporting your answers using that language of accounting, using those processes that you've learned. There's so much in this case that is kind of beyond the scope of this class, but that's okay. Take the pieces that you can relate to, and the meat of this case, 80% of it, is very digestible with the knowledge that you have now. And you can really make some very insightful contributions just based on the knowledge that you've acquired up to this point. So definitely do that. Have some fun with this. But again, make sure you're answering these questions sufficiently. All right, so that is with the case study. Let's jump back out to the module real quick. So we do have a final exam. I talked about that in my previous video, so I'm not going to hash that over too much, but just make sure you watch my video from last week talking about the final. It's the design your own final. You should all get 100% on it. It's there for you. You put the effort in without a question. You put the effort in, you're going to get 100 on the final. So that's a chunk of points, 200 right there. students normally do fantastic. Where they don't do fantastic is if they don't answer the correct number of questions or they don't even turn it in. And that really kills you with 200 points. So again, make sure you're answering those questions like I've talked about before, and you'll do just great. I have one final progress journal. So I really do value your thoughts. We've made course corrections based off of your feedback as we've been going through this course. So even though we're now in the final module and there's going to be really no more course corrections, your thoughts and opinions will help shape the course for the next round of students coming through. So I really do value what you have to say in your comments in these progress journals. So thank you very much for that. And then lastly, we have that extra credit opportunity. Most students don't need it, but it's there if you want. Now, let me just revisit real quickly the final last points. And that is, remember, the course ends Sunday. I do take late work. There will be a deduction on points for late work. Some of you have some assignments that haven't been turned in yet. If you have especially one of these large point consequence assignments like a case study, if you didn't get case study 1 in, you want to get case study 1 in. If you don't get, let's say that you didn't turn in the case study, you say, oh, I'm not going to turn it in. That's 125 points right there. That's a letter grade automatically. You're already down 1 letter grade. It's just a 0 in the grade book. Now let's say you turn it in and you do a great job on it, Okay, you're going to get a deduction on points. But let's say you earn, with a deduction on points and it being late, and you earn, 90 points out of 125. That can preserve your A. Let's say you did kind of not so good and you got 50 points out of it. 50 out of 125. That could still preserve a letter grade. But when you have a 0 in there for 125, mathematically it's impossible. So definitely get that in if you haven't gotten it in yet. I will accept all late work. Okay, guys? I will accept all late work up until Sunday at midnight. Just get it in. Again, there'll be a deduction on points to be fair to those that turned it in on time, but it can be definitely can help you with your overall grade in this course. I'm not going to have, I'll be honest, I'm not going to have you do an assignment that's worth 125 points and then only give you 10 points for the assignment because it's been discounted so far down for being late. There's no reason even to do it for that point. There's no incentive for you to do it at that point. But I will be fair to you and fair to those that turned it in on time, to apply a certain rubric on lateness, but still honor the work that you've done, especially if it was good quality work, even if it was late. All right, so there's that. All of our regular stuff, of course, for Module 8 turned in Sunday at midnight, so we'll be great there. Now, one of the things that I can't do, I simply don't have the time because of the way grades are due, is that if there is something missing when I come in Monday morning, because I have to turn around, grade whatever's been submitted, and then I have to submit your final grades. So usually by the end of Monday, the computer and Power updates and your final grades are in the system. But I have a certain, by noon, I have to have everything graded. So I don't have time to track you down if something's missing. So make sure everything is in. Now I am finishing up the grading for Module 7 today. Probably won't be fully done with all the students. So by tomorrow though for sure. So by Thursday for sure, everything that you turned in for 7, and even some of you who've been progressing towards 8, that should all be graded. Now if you noticed that what I like to do is if I'm going through and I see a missing assignment, I'll put a 1 point in there, kind of to draw your attention to it. If you look at the grade book and you see that you only have a single point for an assignment, that means I didn't see it. Now if you had turned it in, Canvas does give me a notification, but if you still see that single point after tomorrow, let me know. And you turned it in. Let me know. Say, Chris, I turned it in. But I always will go back and check. I'll check everybody who has a single point in there, making sure that that drop box is either empty, student didn't turn it in, or if they did turn something in, I'll get that graded for you. So do check your grades. I'd say hopefully today is Wednesday. Check them out maybe late Thursday, maybe Thursday evening, and then let me know if you have any questions on Friday, especially if you have, something doesn't look quite right. All right, that pretty much concludes our course wrap-up. I want to let you guys know that you've been one of the strongest groups I've had in quite a while. I mean, the case study 1, like I said last time, was phenomenal. You guys did a great job on case study 1. The learning activities have been great. You've done a really great job with that. The quizzes, I know some of you always get worried about the quizzes, but hopefully by now you've seen how everything kind of works itself out. The quizzes are meant to be the little bit of the challenge part of this course, the part where you stretch a little bit, but they're not meant to hurt you grade point wise, because we're able to have other assignments that help with our course level learning objectives to prove that you have that knowledge in there. So it's one of the things that we use, but it's not the whole thing. But sometimes we get very wrapped up in that quiz grade. But overall, your quiz grades, have been very solid for some very difficult quiz questions. I will say that they can be pretty detailed. So you guys did a really great job with those challenging quizzes in there. All right. Well, you've been a great class. Hope everybody has a fantastic spring break. You can recharge your batteries before heading into our second 8 weeks. For those of you that are taking, it's not required, so don't freak out, but some of you might be taking the finance class with me in the second 8 weeks. Remember, I know you probably want to burn that textbook, but hold on to it. We will still use that textbook. It is, like I've told you before, it's a great textbook, a little heavy on theory though, I'll be quite honest with you on that. But to save students money, we use that one textbook for both classes. So do keep that textbook if you are taking finance in the second 8 weeks of spring semester. So I hope to see some of you in that class. You've been a great group. If I don't see you in that class, I'm sure we'll bump into each other at some other course down the road, especially if you're an HCA student. If you're not an HCA student and this is your last class in any of our HCA classes, thank you so much, and I wish you all the best in your studies. And for all of you, I wish you all the best in your studies. Thank you.